How's it going, everybody? I appreciate you tuning in as we have a big game to talk about this week as the Buffalo Bills are visiting the Kansas City Chiefs for an AFC Championship rematch on Sunday Night Football tomorrow night. I have these two gentlemen, Mookie Hawkins, sports director over at WUFO. I always appreciate Mookie coming on. It's always fun. It's always a pleasure. Mookie, hope you're doing well, man.
Absolutely, man. Same to you, man. I'm doing okay. We doing okay so far, so good right now.
And another guest, first time on Cold Front Report. He is a beat reporter for Kansas City, and he's director over at Sideline Sports Talk KC. Steve Walls, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate your time. And hopefully we can get a lot of your insight.
Hey, how's it going? I appreciate you having me.
Yep. Thank you very much for coming on. This is a big game for both teams. It's a big game to see where both teams are really in the AFC as they drop for position, and they're both in their own divisions. And most importantly, in the conference, the first four games for the Chiefs, they stand at 2-2, as the Bills stand at 3-1, having won all three of their last games after dropping the season opener to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steve, it's been kind of a rocky road so far here for the start of the season for the Chiefs, but they have a steady coaching staff, a bunch of guys in place that have been there for a long time, a lot of continuity, and a lot of camaraderie in that locker room with Andy Reid at the helm, along with Patrick Mahomes, as everybody knows. Can you shine some light as to what they've kind of dealt with this season, as we've seen the defense hasn't really been up to par as what we've come used to? What kind of issues have they had to deal with throughout the first month of the year?
Well, coming into this season, we all know what happened in the Super Bowl, right? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they definitely mopped the floor with the Chiefs, and no one didn't expect them to not score a touchdown, an offensive touchdown. So fast forward training camp, everyone expected, a newly bolstered offensive line. That was the need coming into this season, and so at the beginning of the season, it's like, all right, they're playing the Browns week one, and it seemed as though everything was rolling offensively, and on to the defensive side, it was like, okay, well, you have all of your defensive players coming back, your starters from last year. Why isn't it working? They had some issues in the red zone last season, and now it seems to be highlighted more than last year. And so when you look at going into week 2 and week 3, the offense has struggled. Tyreek Hill didn't get the yards that he's used to getting, and I said this to Mookie earlier, and it was as though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have put the have put the video out there. So they've shown what needs to be done to beat these Kansas City Chiefs, and that's what everyone has been doing. They're playing too deep and saying, "Hey, beat us with the run." So Clyde Edwards-Helaire earlier in the season has fumbled twice, but now he seems to come into his own. He's had two games so far that he's had over 100 yards consecutively, and so I think now it's the point where teams are going to have to respect the run just as much as they respect the pass. On the defensive side, hey, it's still a head scratcher. You move Chris Jones to the outside and to play defensive end when he was top 5 at his position. And now he's on the defensive end, and it's like, okay, Chris Jones hasn't had a sack since week 1. We're now going into week 5, and Chris is I think he's getting a little frustrated. He's been battling a wrist injury these past couple weeks, so he hasn't practiced all week, and now I think not only fans, but I think the coaching staff is kind of getting a little frustrated with Chris.
Yeah, they've definitely had some problems on the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to talk about that. But I want to kind of focus on the offensive line and what they've done up front, because last week coming out of Philadelphia, that was probably one of the most impressive showings I've seen from that Chiefs offense, as you spoke of the focal point of them trying to run the ball, trying to have two dimensions on that offense for defenses to really have to account for and game plan for. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he is not a bad running back. He's really skillful in what he brings to the Chiefs offense as a satellite back, as a receiver coming out of the backfield, and also as a player that they can really target the perimeter of a defense with, a player that just a playmaker, somebody who adds an element of explosiveness out of the backfield, and a player that every defense has to account for when they match up with them. That offensive line really did look good. Trey Smith really held his own with the likes of Fletcher Cox playing up against a veteran who's been in this league for a long time. He's been really a threatening player along the interior for a long time. Mookie, can you kind of touch on for me how you feel about Kansas City and how their rushing attack matches up with the Bills this coming week?
When you break down what's going on now, in reference to their run game, the first couple of games they had, they was kind of like how our run game was last year. They wasn't getting, Clyde Allaire, really too much involved, and he did have a little nagging injury there. But last game, they made an emphasis on, getting him the football. And, right now, I mean, they are, top 10 in the NFL in rushing at 130, but the Bills are, a couple steps, ahead at 5 at 145 this year. That, nobody's really talking about that. So that's going to be the thing. I mean, based upon what happened in the Super Bowl, Kansas City revamped their offensive line. They felt the need to, get younger and stronger up front for Patrick Mahomes. But guess what? There's no continuity. And people have to understand how valuable continuity is, when dealing with, in the NFL. So I think the Bills have an edge up front, due to that fact, and especially, like I was talking to Steve earlier about doing us that big favor, putting Chris Jones on the outside because he's very uncomfortable that way. John Feliciano don't have to worry about him tomorrow. But we do have Spencer Brown, a young guy, 6'8", 330-pound rookie. It's pretty nasty. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see. But I think what the Bills done up front, bringing in Russo, Boogie Basham, Espinoza, second year, Stylo Toure, who didn't play last year, he's made a big impact. So I think it's going to be something in the trenches again that, is going to decide this game.
Yeah, those matchups up front really kind of dictated these last two matchups between the Bills and the Chiefs. These last two games that they had last year earlier in the earlier portion of the season, and of course in that AFC championship game when all eyes were watching. So this matchup really, I agree with you, Mookie, that it does fall between the trenches. And one player in particular that I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball that hasn't really been available for Kansas City for the first portion of the season is Frank Clark. He played in the first game, and he's been out for the last 3 weeks after being placed on IR with a hamstring injury. Steve, can you kind of shine some light onto what we might be able to expect out of Frank Clark this week, what we can anticipate? Do you think he's good to go and ready to go, or do you think he'll show some rust after being out for 3 weeks?
Frank is a gamer. However, he hasn't played, and how do you develop that, as Mookie was talking about, the continuity within your team? And he without playing, it's like, okay, Frank, you played in week 3, and you had one hamstring injury, and then you turn around and have another, and so Frank has a lot hanging over his head right now. Frank is going through a court case in California, so you have a lot of outside things that I think are affecting his game. He didn't really do much in training camp or preseason, so I feel like right now this defense has struggled on the other side without having Frank Clark available. And I think that's the thing that they were counting on when they moved Chris Jones to the outside. They were counting on, well, teams have to respect the fact that Frank Clark is over on the other side. And so without Frank there is a definite struggle with this defense.
Yeah, it has really had an impact on their presence up front along the line of scrimmage. That really has a big deal with how offenses are going to approach you, how threatening you can be on the perimeter of a defense. They did a really good job of getting in Josh Allen's face in both of the last two matchups, being able to exploit the matchups that they had along the interior with players like Cody Ford, players such as Ike Bodker and John Feliciano, as Mookie had mentioned. I'm excited to see what really Kansas City has up their sleeves, because if Clark's available for what the Chiefs are hoping to do, and if Chris Jones is also available, then I think that provides an ideal matchup for them. And it also brings up some question marks for the Bills, who, they've had their struggles with defending pass rushes in the past. And really these last handful of weeks, specifically against a front such as Washington, there's been more reason to have optimism for how this front can handle themselves. They did move Darrell Williams along the interior to try and, I wouldn't necessarily say alleviate, but experiment with a front that they could use to try and combat some of these more powerful pass rushes that they will see in the coming future. And if they were to face both Chris Jones and Frank Clark tomorrow, then that would be quite the combination for this Bills offensive line to try and combat, to try and attack. Mookie, do you think that this matchup with Chris Jones and Frank Clark, if both were available, that could provide trouble for the Bills' offensive line?
All right, sure. Yeah, I mean, we understand. I mean, just look at what they did last year. So, they can easily do it again, this year. I mean, they're up against the same guys. It's nothing really different other than, that quick tweak with, Spencer Brown, being in the lineup and, Darrell Williams on the inside. But once again, Chris Jones is on the outside and, Clark plays and, he probably be up against Deion Dawkins. Um, so I like those odds. I like Spencer Brown versus Chris Jones, and I like Deion Dawkins versus Frank Clark tomorrow.
I will say this: that Frank hasn't been the same player that he was in 2019. You had Frank that came in. He's the highest paid defensive end, and he just hasn't been that same guy. 2019, you could see the fire. You could see what Frank brought to this defense as far as he rallied the troops. Other than Tyrann Mathieu, Frank was the other leader of this defense. What Frank said, he would give bullets and more material to the other team and expect his guys to come and help him and back it up. And so I think last year we saw Frank kind of on the downward spiral. But the thing about Frank is he's, like I said, he's going through a lot. And what can we expect from Frank? We really don't know. And I don't know if you're going to get much from Frank in tomorrow's game.
Yeah. I mean, this Chiefs defense, teams have really been able to do what they want against the Chiefs, whether it's pass the ball, run the ball. Teams have been able to do what their offenses have been designed to do against the Chiefs. And that's been problematic for the Chiefs because you're not always going to outscore teams. They do have as high powered of an offense as they have. There are teams that are going to have stouter defenses that you're not going to necessarily win these shootouts where it's always going to be a high scoring affair. I really feel like in this matchup, the time of possession is the biggest factor when it comes to these two offenses. The rushing attacks for the Chiefs and the Bills is really going to dictate how successful either team is going to be, in my opinion. Mookie, with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary really looking solid to start this year, the Bills' rushing attack it's far more potent and far more threatening, I feel like, than it was in the previous two matchups against the Chiefs. How do you think that's going to factor when matching up against the Chiefs defense and how the Bills offense is able to operate?
I mean, if the Bills looked at what Cleveland was able to do in their run game, if they look at what Baltimore was able to do in their run game, then, man, they should copy and paste that. You know what I mean? If I was them, I would copy and paste it. I mean, they're not looking for the Bills to, line up the same way as those teams have. I mean, you can window dress it up, but, do the same type of deal. The Bills kind of did that last week versus Houston. So I would like to see, that style of variety in their run game. Mix it up a little bit. Now, it helps Josh when it's time to, fake that and pull it out. It helped the receivers get a little bit more freer because now linebackers are coming up. You even got, the defense, the secondary sucking up. So it all goes hand in hand. Once the Bills have good balance in their run game, they're a very scary team. And they're putting up points, in reference to that. Like really there's no problem on putting up points other than, the Steelers game. But other than that, there's no problem putting on points. It's no fault. It's not their fault that, they played Houston and in Miami. And, at first everybody was talking like how Miami was the front runner to win the AFC East. But since we put a donut up on them, I guess they supposed to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny how those things work sometimes. But Steve, in the last two matchups with the Chiefs, specifically the one last year when they visited Buffalo, and they were really able to run the ball down the Bills' throat. I think it's always difficult whenever the Bills have to match up with the Chiefs, considering how familiar both coaches are with one another. How familiar Sean McDermott is with Andy Reid, and vice versa. That really goes a long way when these two are game planning for one another, and their sides of the ball are going up against one another. How do you feel the Chiefs are going to trying to exploit what looks to be a revamped Bills defense with their rushing attack, and what seems to be a messy game again tomorrow as rains in the forecast?
I think the MO for this Kansas City Chiefs team, and everyone knows it, it's the air attack, right? I think the Chiefs know that until you show that you can stop it, they're going to try to pass the ball. And they I feel like they've understood that Tyreek Hill has, had a down couple of games. He had, I believe, 56 receiving yards against the Chargers and 14 receiving yards against Baltimore. Well, last week he came out and had 11 receptions for 186 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's been an up and down year for Tyreek, but at any time and in any given moment, defenses know it. He can blow the doors off of a defense. And not only that, but you have another guy in Travis Kelce who he's had some great games against this Buffalo Bills defense. If you look at the AFC Championship game, he had about 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I really believe the Chiefs understand is they're saying, okay, well, you're going to have to pick your poison. You're either going to take away Tyreek or you're going to take away Travis. You can't take away both. Well, then on the flip side of that, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been able to run the ball successfully. These past 2 games, he's had over 100 yards, and I think he's developed a lot of confidence. And the offensive line has shown that they've developed that continuity where they're saying, okay, Clyde is able to get to the line of scrimmage and break a tackle and gain more yards. So I feel like the offense is not only pass heavy now, but they've also developed a great running attack as well.
Yeah, and being multidimensional is so important for an offense such as the Chiefs and also the Bills as well. Mookie, how do you really feel about the Bills matching up with Travis Kelce? Because for me, that is the biggest concern I have with how this matchup fares for the Bills, considering the success, as Steve alluded to, that Kelce's had against the Bills in the past, and him just being such a matchup nightmare. I mean, I don't really think you could find a team in the National Football League that knows quite how to cover Travis Kelce for 4 quarters, especially when you have a quarterback as potent as Patrick Mahomes. Matt Milano's questionable entering this game. He tweaked his hamstring early in the game against Houston last week. And, when a player's listed as questionable, there's doubt in the air as to whether or not he's going to be out there for the Bills. And I think that is quite vital for how the Bills are going to match up against Kelce and their plan of attack as to how they're going to try and, mitigate how he's going to affect this or how he's going to affect this game. What do you think the Bills are going to try and do to try and shut down Travis Kelce or try and limit what he can do and hurt their defense?
Well, first of all, you can't let them just get no free releases off the line of scrimmage. All right. We can't allow that to happen. All right. You got to, be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, try to disrupt their timing and, mix it up. We know the Bills don't blitz a lot. They rely a lot on their 4-man. So you're going to see that too. You're going to see the Bills in 4-man to see what their 4-man front can do. Can they get pressure? Or you're going to see the Bills, match up and send some blitz packages. But you got to make sure you're identifying where number 10 and 87 is at all times. You gotta be physical with Kelce at the point of attack, and basically I would bracket number 10. You can only contain the cheetah. You'll never catch a cheetah. All right. You can only, put him in the cage, try to, corral him. So I would bracket coverage with the cheetah and, be physical as all hell with number 87 to the whistle blows.
Yeah, those 2 players and how successful they're going to be is going to have a lot to do with how successful the Chiefs are or how successful the Bills are in this game. I feel like the biggest thing when matching up against the Chiefs is being able to pressure Mahomes, being able not necessarily to get him off his spot, because we've all seen what he can do when he's improving with the football in his hands. He's a magician back there in the pocket, and when he gets out of the pocket and what he's able to do, getting outside or running to his left or right, he can do anything he wants with the football in his hands. So the biggest thing for really trying to contain Mahomes is keeping him in the pocket, being able to collapse from the inside and also from the outside. And I feel like watching the Bills over the last month, they have done an incredible job of just that, being able to collapse the pocket from the interior and also the exterior. Steve, I feel like this year, Patrick Mahomes, he hasn't really been the same player he is when facing pressure. He has been, whereas in the past he's been towards the top of the league when facing pressure and in some metrics. This year he's towards the bottom of the league. And there's also rumors of him dealing with a foot injury that could be hampering him and his ability to evade pressure and what have you. How do you feel the Bills are going to affect Patrick Mahomes if they're able to get pressure in his face and keep him off balance in this game?
I think one of the things that teams have shown that it does not work is if you allow Patrick Mahomes to do the, like you said, the improv, and cause the defenders, the cornerbacks, to have to defend for long periods of time. It's shown over time that if Patrick Mahomes is able to get out in space, that's where he's at his best. And this season, I think what we've heard in all the press conferences and what Patrick Mahomes has said is that he wants to be able to be a pocket passer. He wants to be able to step up, and not like dink and dunk, but he wants to be able to find just the open guy and take what the defense is giving him. Well, I don't feel like that in the 2 games that they've lost, that's worked. I think when you look at what he did last game against the Philadelphia Eagles, he pretty much did what he wanted to do. He got out in space. He played the Patrick Mahomes. We all call it backyard football. It's you kind of draw up a play in the dirt and you tell your guys to just go out and make a play. And I think that's what works. Now, if the defense decides that they want to blitz, God help him, because if he's out in space and he gets Tyreek Hill on, we've seen the 50-yard bombs that Patrick was able to throw rolling out to his right, and he just flings it out there and tells Tyreek he's out there somewhere. We've all seen that meme. So I really believe that the defense needs to kind of step back and see what Patrick is going to do first before they just send, whether it's 4 or whether it's 5 guys, or just develop some type of blitz packages. Let the game unfold first before they do all that.
Yeah. That front for Kansas City is going to dictate a lot for how successful the Chiefs are going to be, how well they can hold up in protection, and also push and move the line of scrimmage in the run game. Mookie, I was wondering how you really felt about that Chiefs front, because while they have seemed to have some good chemistry and they've gelled pretty quickly this season, they are relatively a new front. There are a lot of new pieces on that front that haven't been existent for an extended period of time. That whole right side, I see a lot of opportunities to be created for this Bills defense and Leslie Frazier, and a lot of things they could do to potentially try and confuse a young front, to try and confuse this offense and potentially open up some free rushers. Do you think there's some opportunities to be created for the Bills defense in that regard?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, last year they were saying that they didn't miss Tyler, but you heard Coach Frazier say, yeah, we missed. We sure did miss Star. You see the way he's playing this year, So, that's another X factor to look at. He didn't play last year. How have that helped the Bills' run defense? Right now, the Bills' run defense is number one. They have the number one defense right now. They're only allowing 68 yards on the ground. That's whoever that they line up against. So some key things to look out for. Third down in particular, where the Bills are shooting 50% a clip, and Kansas City is number one, over 60%, on third down. So that's a key thing I'm going to watch on third down. Who's able to convert on third down and who's able to run the ball. If you can convert on third down and you can have success running the ball, that's going to be pretty much the team that's going to win, that matchup for the night. So those are 2 key things I'm definitely going to be looking at in the trenches, and especially on third down. It's just, it's a lot of things to look for, because you have this exciting defensive front, right now, this ascending defensive front, and going up against, Kansas City, offensive line that's, been praised, brand new revamped, high-priced offensive line now, to protect Patrick Mahomes. So we're going to see how much continuity they have against a Bills team that these guys didn't play against last year, so it's going to be a whole new thing for that offensive line of Kansas City when they match up against the Bills defensive line.
I feel like it's really it's quite a different matchup than it was last season. The Bills really have all of the tools in their tool chest for this matchup, whereas in the last 2 games they really didn't. And that's not to be that's not to be interpreted as an excuse, but it certainly does have a factor on this game, and it's going to dictate a lot for both of these football teams and how successful they are. So Steve, this Bills receiving core, you look at it, obviously there's a player such as Stephon Diggs, but they've recently added a player in Emmanuel Sanders who has been doing really good things for this offense. They already had Cole Beasley, who continues to do what he's expected to do when he's asked to do it. He had a really good game against the the Washington football team, and he had 11 catches for almost 100 yards. He showed us that this season he's also capable of being that slot factor on the short yardage situations for them to keep the chains moving. And also with Emmanuel Sanders, a player who can play inside, play outside, who's really just a difficult matchup when you have to account for players such as Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. How do you feel that this Bills receiving core matches up with the secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Wow, that's a good question. That's one of the things that we've been asking the defensive coordinators all week. It's okay. So you have Travis Ward, who is the starting cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's been out for the past 2 games. So he's practiced earlier this week, and he's questionable actually for Sunday. So if you don't have Travis Ward out there, you still have the Honey Badger, you have Tyrann Mathieu. I don't really feel like they're going to be able to stop Stephon Diggs. I don't think they're going to be able to match up well with Emmanuel Sanders, but they're going to be able to do some things as far as blitzing goes. And here's the problem with this Kansas City Chiefs defense right now. They're ranked 30. They're ranked last, right, in defense and giving up yards. So it's if this game is not a shootout, I would be surprised because you have a battle-tested Chiefs defense that has come back this season, and they haven't played the same way that they've played over these past 2 years under Steve Spagnuolo. And if you look at how Steve Spagnuolo's defenses work, they struggle early on in the season, and they get stronger as the season goes. Well, that's with a bunch of new guys that haven't really played together. This Chiefs defense, they've all played together. They've been in 2 Super Bowls together, and now it's like, all right, you guys are really just starting over. So I'm really wondering if there's some other internal issues going on, and the Chiefs media, we've just been discussing that. It's like, okay, you guys haven't been the same. So what's really going on? You struggled in the red zone. You played better last week, but you haven't been able to create turnovers. And I don't really know if it's because of Chris Jones has moved to the outside or what's really affecting the defense. But it's going to be a long day for the cornerbacks. I think Tyrann Mathieu and company are going to really have to bear down and figure out what they need to do.
Yeah, it's going to be so important for how the Bills' high-powered offense is able to move the ball and how the Chiefs are able to keep the chains not moving and get off the field when they're supposed to, and give their offense back, give the ball back to number 15 back there, who's, I mean, really just a magician in the pocket and really just the heartbeat of this football team. And if it's a shootout, it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be the game a lot of people have been wanting to see over these last 2 matchups, to see these 2 high-powered offenses be able to do what they need, be able to do what they can do on any given Sunday. And they match up. I wouldn't say really well, but they match up really excitingly. These 2 teams, there's a lot of different outcomes that could happen whenever they come onto the same field. And I feel like the Bills and the Chiefs match up very similarly with one another, and they both play into each other's strengths and weaknesses. Mookie, do you think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Bills in this game to keep the ball moving, put it in the air, and to have Josh Allen be able to do what he can do? And I mean, if it's a shootout, do you think that favors the Bills or it hurts the Bills?
I think a shootout favors the Bills. I mean, it could be another shootout, at Arrowhead. We've been waiting for that. We know that they are both teams are capable of that worst case scenario. I mean, we already know how high powered offense Kansas City is. Some people say that's how you got to beat them. You just got to outscore them because they don't really care about their defense. As long as their offense is putting up 30 points a game, it just comes down to, just that defense getting the stop on that particular drive. You know what I mean? So you're looking at a team that's, pretty much have balance on both sides, offense and defense. Bills are probably playing the most complete football right now in the NFL, other than what's happening out there in Arizona so far. So, yeah, I mean, the Bills are more capable and ready for a shootout if need be. And we know Josh has that clutch gene as well. If we need that game-winning drive, we know that Josh Allen is more than capable of performing that.
It's funny that you say that, Mookie, because it seems as though Patrick Mahomes understands that, hey, if my defense is going to give up, 30 points, I have to score 35. Right. And that's what the Chiefs average is around, 32, 35 points. And so they understand, hey, we have to put up points because our defense is going to give up a lot of points. So, it's going to be a shootout, I think. But one thing that folks don't understand is that Patrick Mahomes is able to score points in a matter of seconds. He's able to march, 80 yards down the field in, under a minute. And that's where the Chiefs really beat teams is they allow you to get the ball at the beginning of the game. They defer, and then they come back after halftime, whether they're up or down, and then they score when they come back at halftime. So I think that if the Bills don't score first, it's going to be a long day.
Well, I'll call that a prediction, because here on the Saturday Night Tailgate, we do bold predictions. Mookie's going to give his score prediction and his bold prediction later in the show, but our time with you, Steve, is starting to run out, and I want to get your bold prediction and also your score prediction for this game. I want to first of all, I want to thank you for all the insight you provided. I want to thank you for coming on, and I'll give you an opportunity to plug anything you have going on also. I just want to thank you because your insight was really appreciated. You gave a lot of knowledge, and it was nothing but a pleasure to have you on the show, so thank you.
I really appreciate it. To answer your question about the bold prediction, like I said, if the Bills don't come out and score first, it's going to be a long day, and that's what the Chiefs want to do. They want to, defer the kickoff, right, and allow their defense to kind of get settled in, and they want to do a 3 and out. And if they're able to come out and score, then that's a plus. But here it is. They want to be able to come out at halftime and score, whether they're up or they're down. And I think the score coming into tomorrow, if I say 45-41, I think that will do it. 45-41 Chiefs.
All right, that's more than fair. You gotta go with the Chiefs. Chiefs guys gotta go with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. For all of those that are watching, you want to follow Steve, you can find his Twitter handle in the description below. You can just click the link, go to his Twitter page, give him a follow. You can be plugged into everything he has going on. If you could shine some light on what you have going on. I know you're a sports director over at the radio station. You do a lot of different things, and just what do you have going on for all the people to stay tuned for?
You can follow my radio show at the W Show KC. That's on all social media. You can find us. We broadcast live every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. to noon. Also, I host the Chiefs pregame show. If you guys are around tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Actually, since it's a night game, it'll be starting at 6. So 6:30 to 7 is when our pregame show. That's the Chiefs cheat sheet. You can get some of the inside things that are coming up on game day, and also you can follow myself at Steve Walls KC.
Thank you for your time, Steve. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all your knowledge and insight. It's been a pleasure, man.
I appreciate you guys.
All right,
thank
Steve,
you.
Appreciate you, big dog.
Yep.
Now we have our second guest for the evening. Let me do a quick switcheroo. We got our second guest for the evening, Mario Granada from #Sports, a usual regular here on the Saturday. It's awesome when you're on, Mario. I thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Hey, anytime you ask me to come on, Clayton, the Saturday Night Tailgate, I am here, as well as I'm absolutely right out of the gates. Let me let me congratulate Mookie for his upcoming role in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas 2. I love those glasses, Mookie. That's pretty awesome. How you doing, Mookie? How you doing, Clayton?
What's going on, big dog? How you been?
I've been good. I was I'm just a little confused how just really quick how Steve could have a 40 to both teams scoring 40 points, but the game's over if the Chiefs score first. I'm just a little confused by that.
Hey, I mean, it is what it is.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's like getting beat up by your big brother for so many years, and then you just get used to it. I understand
Jedi mind tricks. It's a Jedi mind trick. I tried to tell him that earlier when he was going with this Josh Gordon. I understand he's on the team now, but they can only do so much with Josh Gordon. They're going to isolate and go up top probably. They're going to do some stand-ups with him and some slants. That's about it. They're not about to just make him the focal point of their offense. We know who's the focal point of that offense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're not about to go with that narrative.
Mario, what worries you about the Chiefs? You know, because we've seen this matchup. We've talked about this matchup. Anytime we're talking about the Bills matching up with the Chiefs, I've talked to you about it quite extensively. So I want to know what in your mind is the most concerning for the Bills on either side of the ball. Most concerning thing for you entering the game.
Well, I mean, you guys touched on it a little bit earlier when you were talking with Steve. Is the trenches? If that's not controlled early and often by the Buffalo Bills, it's going to be a very, very long day for the Bills. But as far as what concerns me the most about the Chiefs is the mindset going into the game. Like I just said briefly, it's like that little brother syndrome. You know what I mean? If the Buffalo Bills come in and they succumb to the Chiefs' mystique, I mean, you're talking about a Chiefs team that's 2-2. That's their defense is ranked 31st in almost every category. You know, teams that are ranked 31st in almost every category, they're not 2-2 at this point. You know, that offense is literally carrying them, and that's not a recipe for success in the NFL. And due to what the success and the track record of the Buffalo Bills defense, I know they had a couple of hiccups for a couple of years here and there, but they were still a stellar, stout defense. Everyone's given so much credence and so much, all this, adulation to the Chiefs offense. But what the Buffalo Bills defense is doing this year is being overlooked just because of their opponents. And I don't think that that's really fair to what the Buffalo Bills have been able to do. I mean, if they would have won their previous 2 games by a combined like 14 points, I could see people going in and say, "Oh, they didn't play any quarterbacks, and then they just won by this." But they are physically dominating that side of the ball. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, am I worried about the Chiefs offense? Yes. However, this defense is playing at a level that we have not seen in the NFL for a very long time.
And you're kind of shining some light onto the fact that we haven't seen it in quite some time. And what you're really kind of alluding to by saying that is, it was a stat that was floating around after they had shut out the Texans that no team, aside from, I believe it was the 91 Washington, back then, the Washington Redskins, and the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. And I don't know the instance with the Redskins in 91, but I do know in 2000 when the Ravens did what the Bills did, which was shut out 2 teams in the first 4 weeks of the season, that it wasn't really necessarily talked about, where you're talking about who the Bills have played, what quarterbacks they've shut out, who have they done this against necessarily. And it was Jacoby Brissett, Davis Mills, 2 backup quarterbacks. Well, when the Baltimore Ravens did it back in 2000, one of the best defenses that football minds can remember, they also did it against backup quarterbacks in both of the instances where they had shutouts. That was also against backup quarterbacks. So it wasn't really necessarily a narrative that people were trying to talk about back then, where it wasn't brought into question necessarily because it was against backups. It was more so an appreciation for what was at that point in time a great defense, and now remembered as one of the best ever. So if the Bills are able to keep up the pace that they're on at this current point in time, this is certainly one of the most dangerous football teams in the league. You look at how dominant they've been, how physical they've been, really, how confident they've been. They've been able to play fast, play physical, and they've been able to cause turnovers and really keep the offenses at bay, keep them wondering, keep them feeling threatened. And that is the biggest thing you can have in your back pocket as a defensive coordinator or as a defensive player, is to have that offense feel threatened and feel like they're not able to do what they need to do. And, you can say what you will about who they've matched up with, but I really feel like this is a test for the Bills defense just as much as it is a test for the Chiefs offense, because if the Chiefs can't score, they can't win. That's been well stated as a fact as to how bad their defense has been. And it's completely different worlds that we're talking about for what the opposing offenses are matching up with on different sides of the ball. Mookie, what do you really think about the Bills defense and how they match up with the Chiefs? Do you think this defense is going to kind of keep Patrick Mahomes at bay and make him feel threatened? Or do we see a Patrick Mahomes that we really haven't seen all that much when he gets he goes out there and he's trying to play that backyard football, and we start seeing him make mistakes because of that? Do you think that's kind of recipe that the Bills want to, cook up and make this offense force themselves into mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, just like Steve give us, some good tidbits that I'm quite sure we already know watching film, right? He likes to roll to his right. So what we do, flush his ass to the left. Don't let him roll to the right. If we're going to sit back and rely on our 3-man pressure and 3 men our 4-man pressure, 4's not getting it, you may have to go to a damn cover 8, rely on the 3-man pressure just to keep Patrick Mahomes, bottled up in the pocket, making 4 something, or match up, send some heat, play aggressive, something that the Bills have not played yet in the first 2 matchups. I mean, you ain't got nothing to lose right there. I think they got the tools to, lock up at some point and send some heat, disrupt the time and be physical with those guys up front. I mean, if you're going to beat them, you got to beat those guys up physically. You're not going to beat a Kansas City team playing passive, aggressive football. We've done that the two first meetings. They can't play that way tomorrow night and think they're going to get, the same results. They got to be nasty. They got to have I don't give a shit attitude and, not care about anything that's in red and yellow, tomorrow. I mean, they just got to be straight outright disrespectful. We coming here to take care of business and we going back home and we moving on to Tennessee on Monday night, period. That's just how the demeanor they need to have.
Yeah. And, this game, I understand all these guys, they can't come out and say that, oh, we're pissed off because we lost in the AFC Championship game or any of those sort of things. You cannot come out as a football player and say that. It shows lack of professionalism. That's not what this team is going to do, considering the man they have at the helm. That's not what they're told that they should or can do. Yeah. So I wouldn't anticipate anybody to say, oh, yeah, we have that chip on our shoulder, but I really do expect them to play with it tomorrow. That's what I really envision for this football team, to kind of see, a little bit more vinegar in their demeanor, a little bit more, that big chip on their shoulder. I expect to see them play with it. And players such as Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, players like that, guys who lost that AFC Championship game last year, people who understand how important it is in that locker room, because, really that's the only thing that's left for this football team, aside from, doing what they want to do, getting to the pinnacle, getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, is getting over that Kansas City Chiefs hump. We saw Lamar Jackson earlier this season not going to Kansas City, but played Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. And that's been a big deal for the Ravens, getting over the Chiefs and being able to beat the Chiefs. And now it's time for the Bills to be able to do that. It's time for the Bills to be able to show that they can beat the biggest dog in the yard. And, I wouldn't necessarily say finish the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are a really good football team and they're going to be there at the end of the season regardless. But how this team matches up, it's very different. It's not the same matchup that we saw the last 2 years, not the last 2 years, but these past two games. This defense that the Bills have is much different than it was these last two matchups. And I think that their presence along the line of scrimmage is in a completely different stratosphere in comparison to the previous two matchups. And that, as we've alluded to throughout the show, that's really what dictates it for me, how they're able to do up front, what they're able to do up front, dictating the line of scrimmage, who owns line of scrimmage. That all matters mightily in this game. Mario, in your opinion, how do you feel about the Bills' rushing attack against the Chiefs? Do you think that they can really do what they want, or do you think that it's going to be okay, let me not beat around the bush. Do you think they're going to run the ball when they should and when they need to try and have it be something that the Chiefs have to account for? Because what I don't want to see is I don't want to see them become pass happy. I don't want to see them force the ball into Josh Allen's hands to make him do things when he shouldn't, and inevitably make a mistake happen when you don't have balance, when the team's just kind of having Frank Clark and Chris Jones pin their ears back and come after the quarterback. That's how this Bills offense puts themselves into issues. Do you envision that kind of thing happening tomorrow for the Bills?
I don't see the Bills. I mean, short of shooting themselves in the foot, I don't see the Bills doing that. I think when you come in on paper, you're coming up against the 31st ranked rush defense right now. I mean, it would be, and you have the fourth highest rush offense in the NFL. So I think it would be silly for the Buffalo Bills not to try to test the waters as far as the run game goes. And if they enjoy some success in that, what's going to happen is that the play action game is going to open up for them. And then we all know, everyone in this room knows how dangerous that the Buffalo Bills are when Josh Allen is able to use that play action game to his advantage. So I think that's probably going to be one of the sleepers. It's going to be a kind of a double-edged sword, though, or maybe more of a catch-22, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, they're running the ball. Oh, here they go again, trying to shorten up the game, trying to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, which isn't a terrible idea. But in the previous instances, I can understand that. But in this instance right now, you're talking about you have a viable rushing attack with Singletary and Moss. What you're going to have to do is use that to your advantage and force the hand of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, if Steve Spagnuolo was not on the other sideline, I would think that this game would be a blowout, absolute blowout by the Buffalo Bills. And it still might be, because The Chiefs literally just played the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles did not punt and lost by 12. So you're starting to see some of those things that start to manifest in and of themselves. It's almost like, how are the Bills going to stop that potent offense of the Chiefs? My question is, how are the Chiefs going to stop that defense from hunting? Now, we know the makeup of the Buffalo Bills defense is that they're a zone coverage team. They bring pressure with 4. They bring odd man pressures every once in a while. Leslie Frazier has done a great job of mixing young guys with the veterans and doing a bunch of different things. Oh, how are you going to stop the cheetah? You're not. Okay, you can try to bracket him, but if you try to bracket him, what you're doing is you're taking Hyde and Poyer out of their comfort zone and what they're usually used to doing. Okay, who are you going to put on Kelsey? You're going to put Milano on Kelsey? You're going to put Edmonds on Kelsey? That's always the big question. Well, in my opinion, I talked about it on our tailgate last night, was the fact that I think you put Trey White on Kelsey. And everyone's like, oh, he's too bigger. He's too big. Trey is such a physical corner, and you need to punch Kelsey off of the line immediately. Now, what does that do for you? By putting Trey on Kelsey, you're allowing those linebackers to hunt for Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield, and you're allowing that bracket coverage deep with Hyde and whoever else you have that's going on the cheetah. Okay, that's what you need to do. And you're going to see very quick in this game, in the first 2 or 3 series, how that front 4 is able to generate pressure on Mahomes. It's not going to be they're going to go hunting after rookie quarterbacks or the quarterbacks that they've played over the last 2 weeks. It's going to be, we're going to try to keep him in the pocket and push it into his face and not allow him to get out of the pocket. Like Mookie said, he's successful rolling to his right and ad-libbing and doing this and that. Well, don't let him do that. Just confine it and crush his walls down inside of that pocket and just collapse it inside of him. So I think if the Buffalo Bills are able to do that, the Bills are able to will be able to run the ball if they don't shoot themselves in the foot to try to be too cute offensively.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I'm really excited to see how the Bills match up on the outside of this offensive line with them. That's what I want to see, how Orlando Brown and Lucas Niang match up with what the Bills have on the edge. And, I'm anticipating, despite being listed as questionable, AJ Epinesa is going to be a go tomorrow. And I'm anticipating that Greg Rousseau is going to get a lot of snaps and that these guys are going to they're going to line up and they got to play the game. They're going to have to match up and win their matchups if the Bills defense is going to be successful. But I do think that the Bills have matchups to win when in regards to what Epinesa brings to the outside and also what Greg Rousseau brings to the outside and Jerry Hughes. They just have a lot of tools in their tool chest when it comes to that defensive front and what they can do to confuse that Kansas City front, do what they move their guys around, move Epinesa and Greg Rousseau along the inside, and also use a player who I think a lot of people are going to start making note of him going forward tomorrow is Ed Oliver. I think Ed Oliver has one hell of a matchup inside this week. If you line him up over Trey Smith and you also use your guys to your advantage, load a side, pick a side that you want to win, pick your matchups and win. You don't think so, Mario?
In my opinion, what I would do is if I were the Buffalo Bills is I would have Starr eat both of those rookies. I'd have them eat Humphreys and Smith and then see what Ed Oliver has against Thuney. That's what I mean. You want it to me. Starr is as good a player as anybody in the league when you put him one-on-one with somebody, even a veteran guard like Thuney. Now, if you decide to switch it, maybe Thuney could take Starr by himself. And then what happens then? The reason why the Buffalo Bills have been able to enjoy some success defensively and almost like historic success is the fact that Starr has been able to eat 2 bodies. So you have one-on-one matchups across the line with everybody else, with Rousseau, with Oliver, with Hughes, with Addison, with Epinesa. That is why you've been able to be so successful, is because that monster is eating 2 guys up every play when he's in there. And I would venture to guess if they play disciplined football and stay in their lanes and don't let Mahomes get outside, because we've seen it so many times. Hughes will take that wide, he'll take that wide thing, which opens up a throwing lane underneath for Mahomes, which is something that they can't do. But if you have 3 of those guys have one-on-one matchups tomorrow in the game, Mahomes is going to have a longer day than he did it against Tampa. I guarantee you that. So I would sick Starr on the 2 rookies, Humphreys and Smith, and have him, baptize those 2 guys the entire day.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, Mario's up on it. Mario's right up on it. I love talking the matchups. I love it when I have these guys on.
Yeah.
They always provide their insight. These guys always they keep the chain. They keep the ball moving on this show. It's always fun when I'm working with Mookie and Mario. Mookie, what do you think that really does for the Bills? How their matchup is on that defensive front, because that's what dictates a lot for that back end. That this defense, we've said that they look better than they did in 2017, and in 2017, that back end was really able to be opportunistic with what the front four pressure was able to do. And now we've seen that front four be able to do more than they were able to do in 2017. And we've seen the return of the opportunistic turnovers. We've seen the return of the fumbles, the interceptions. What this defense is really predicated on, being able to collapse the pocket, being able to collapse that offensive line and dictate the game at the line of scrimmage. Is that where the game's won and lost in this matchup, in your opinion?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It was the deciding factor in the AFC Championship game. It's going to be, the deciding factor again, on Sunday night. Like, when you do look at how Kansas City just changed their line is totally different from last year's line. So I give the Bills an advantage due to the fact that, they have continuity on both sides now. Last year, there was no continuity on the defensive front at all. You got Styler Tulare opting out, and then you got Quentin Jefferson, who's new, Vernon Butler, who's new. They don't have no continuity with Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes. It was just teams were able to do whatever. Now, another year together, on both sides up front, and you add some, exciting pieces to go along with that with Greg Rousseau or Boogie Basham. You got Spencer Brown on the flip side on the offensive line, so you bring in those valuable pieces, and you add another dynamic piece in Emmanuel Sanders. That's going to be clearly an X factor on third down. So, I mean, we all know that Cole Beasley is always Josh Allen's safety valve. Look for Emmanuel Sanders to be, that guy as well on third down. Something that, Smoke Brown couldn't do on third down. He couldn't convert, when it was his time to make plays. And, I think that, Emmanuel Sanders is going to have when his number is called, he's going to produce. Whether that's 2 targets for 2 catches or, 6 targets for 6 catches, he's going to make the most of any time he's targeted out there because he's going to be one-on-one. If they're going to be bracketing Beasley and Diggs, then Emmanuel Sanders is going to be left one-on-one. So I think he's going to produce whenever his number is called. As far as I think we're going to see what Coach McDermott was talking about, after that game, when he realized the size, the speed, the physicality. Do we have that now? Being that Kansas City is still the benchmark in the AFC, do we have these new and improved pieces get them over the hump versus Kansas City? I mean, it's not going to the Super Bowl. It's still a regular season game. But to have a victory versus Kansas City in any capacity, it has definitely be a vote for their confidence. And right now, I mean, like I said before, they're playing the most complete football in the NFL. There's no reason to be nervous now because you're playing Kansas City. So we're going to see what they're made of. We're definitely going to see what they're made of. Everybody want to say that, hey, the Bills haven't played nobody. That's why they're putting up donuts and stuff like that. So we're going to see what the Bills are actually made of because now they're playing the best team, the defending champion. And, this is the eye of the storm. You got them, you got Tennessee. The Bills can weather this storm. This schedule is going to be pretty much cake until it's time to play Tampa Bay in December.
Yeah. This is really, it's a big 2 weeks here for the Bills when it comes to the AFC standings. After they lost that game in the season opener against Pittsburgh, you really don't want to lose to any of the, I'm not calling Pittsburgh a contender, but you really don't want to lose to any other playoff contenders going forward, such as the Titans, such as the Chiefs. This is a huge game for this football team. As I had mentioned when Mario initially hopped on, you talk about just personally what it means to them, what it means to Josh Allen, what it means to all of those people in the building that were a part of that AFC Championship game last year. And just for their psyche, just for the momentum and their confidence, you think about it, I don't think the Bills are going to feel like the team that has the better record coming into this game tomorrow. They're not going to be the team that has that, not necessarily doesn't have the momentum, but they feel like the underdog going into this game. They feel like they're the 3-1 team going to visit a 2-2 team, but you're going to visit the best team in the league, or one of the best teams in the league, a team that you've been trying to get over the hump of for the last season and a half. And it's going to dictate a lot. And I think that the Bills, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they see how the Bills play against the Chiefs tomorrow. I think it's a completely different world for how this defense matches up with that offense. I think it's just we're not really talking about the same games. We're talking about a completely different Bills team, a team that, in my opinion, it got a lot better and way better than the Chiefs had gotten. I mean, how much better can you get when you go to the Super Bowl for 2 years in a row? But the Bills were have ascended. And I'm not necessarily saying that the Chiefs have descended or have become a worse football team, but the Bills are on the move up. And I think that they did the things that they needed to do in the offseason, and they have worked out the kinks on the football team throughout the first 4 months or first 4 weeks of the season to really kind of prove that, yes, the running attack has become better. Yes, the defensive front has become so much better to the point where, they've blanked 2 teams in the first month of the year. This team is really, I think they're legit. I think they're really legit on both sides of the ball, and we haven't really seen any fallacy that we could have been fooled over in the past. I want to talk to you guys about the keys to victory. Mario, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the key to victory is on the offensive side of the ball for the Bills?
Oh boy, am I going to have to mention Brian Daboll again or no?
Yes.
Is that okay? No. Key to victory for the Buffalo Bills. I think if you just stay the course for what you've been doing throughout the year, and how you've been able to move the ball, generate first downs, and put the ball in the end zone. We're a little bit worried about the Buffalo Bills in the first couple of weeks because if they were getting turnovers, they were going down and getting 3. And that's not how you win football games, especially against a high-powered offense that Kansas City has. So what they have to do is, if they're lucky enough to get a turnover in the game, they have to go down and get 7, not 3. So I think you can't go into those types of games and trade with Kansas City as far as that goes. So I think they can come into this game more than any other game that they've ever played Kansas City with a more balanced attack and able to move the ball effectively on the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which is not doing very well at all. And be honest with you, I see Beasley and Knox being huge players in this game because the Chiefs watch tape too. They know Emmanuel Sanders has been lighting up defenses. They know what Stephon Diggs can bring. They know all of those things that are going on as far as the offensive goes. I see that the 3 guys on the offensive side of the ball that are going to be the most valuable players for the Bills tomorrow, or when they win, is going to be Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, and Zach Moss. I think those 3 guys are going to have huge days tomorrow because I go back to the system. I always go back to the system, the EP system, and we've seen the New England Patriots beat the Chiefs even when they had good defenses. And what did they do? They were throwing to Gronk. They were throwing to Edelman. True, Brady didn't really have any receivers, but Kansas City knew they were going to those guys too, and they still couldn't stop them. So mixing in the EP system and the way that it works, I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to delegate all of their resources to Diggs and Sanders, and underneath with Knox, with Beasley, and with Moss coming out of the backfield and running the ball, those are going to be the 3 guys that I'm going to be looking for on Sunday.
Yeah, how the Bills match up with this Chiefs defense and what their weapons are able to really do when you have to allocate your attention to a player such as Stephon Diggs. You have to do something. You're not going to put one defender on him. Stephon Diggs is going to route up anybody when you put one defender on him. It's going to open up a lot for the Bills, and how they choose to attack, what they choose to attack is going to be really important in this game. Mookie, what do you feel is the biggest key to victory for the Bills on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, Steve kind of gave us a little hint on that, right? So this is what, some of the keys to victory. Don't let Kansas City come out on their first drive and score any points, whether it's 3 or 7. Don't let them score anything on their first drive, and don't let them come out scoring no points on their opening drive to start the second half. If the Bills have it first, whatever. Do not let Kansas City score no points on their opening drive to start the second half or to start the game. 2, third down. Get them off the field on third down. No, keep them in a long, get them off the field on third down. I don't care if it's a short yards or long. Get them off the field. They have to get Kansas City off the field on third down. All right, in order to have a chance. And 3, got to keep the variety in the run game. All right, mix it up in your run game. Don't be one-dimensional. mix it up, and that's going to set up the play action for Josh to hit Dawson Knox and Emmanuel Sanders and Stephon Diggs. He was kind of pissed off after that. I'm quite sure they're going to try to do a lot of things to get him involved tomorrow. In reference to how everybody know the confetti. He took part of the confetti bath last year, didn't like it. So I'm quite sure that he can't wait to play on Sunday night as well. So just some of the varieties, though. Just mix it up in the run game because you can run on Kansas City. They are 30th, worst in the league at 145 yards, a crack. And guess what? That's what the Bills average a game. So we got to be able to hit our marks in our run game. Stay consistent in our run game. If we can run for over 140 yards, then those are some good things for the Bills. In reference to them winning the game tomorrow.
Mookie, I got a question really quick. Sorry, Clay. I just want because this is, and there's a reason why I decided to bring up Steve Spagnuolo, because you guys were talking quite a bit about the Buffalo Bills, and you always prepare and try to equip your team to be who the big dog in the yard is. And we know it's Kansas City, who's the defending AFC champion. So what, going back a few years, what did Andy Reid always have to contend with? He had to contend with New England and the EP system and the offense trying to do all this other stuff. So what does Reid do? He goes and hires Steve Spagnuolo, who was the defensive coordinator in the Super Bowl where the Patriots were perfect. So he engineered a defensive game plan that held them to 14 points. So he has experience coaching and getting guys to be successful against an EP system offense. So that is my X factor as far as that goes with this team, is the fact that Spagnuolo has had success equipping teams to face an EP system. So that's what Reid went out and did. And now the Bills, it's almost like a punch counterpunch type of deal. So the Bills went out this offseason we got to get more speed on the outside. They get Basham, they get Rousseau, and they get healthy at certain other positions. And they have this more complete defense now that could contend. And we're going to see it early. We're definitely going to see it early as far as the Bills defense versus the Chiefs offense. But that X factor for the Chiefs, even though they're playing horribly, is always going to be Spagnuolo's game plan coming in against the EP system.
Yeah. They're quite understanding on Spags out there. When they was coaching the Giants, guess what? They relied a lot on that 4-man to create that pressure. So it was the same kind of deal. I mean, these two guys know each other. I mean, Andy Reid basically raised Sean McDermott, and Andy Reid is one of the best, if not the best, coaches in the NFL when it comes to adjusting in game. So. It's really hard to beat Andy Reid now. Not too many people are beating him, depending on you let him get the weapons that he has. But there are some spots on that defense that's depleted. That's not the same from that Super Bowl team. Let's face it. It is what it is. Okay, it is Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, but it is what it is. We're not here to kiss y'all rings. We're here to kick y'all ass this time, all right? So, that's the way I see about it. I mean, yeah, Spags what can he match up with? I mean, what do they really have to match up with the weapons that we have on offense? So, once again, I know you don't want to say it, but let me say it for you. Dable has to come with probably one of his best game plans ever. To come out on top, and they have the tools. They just, like I said, it's got to play aggressive. He got to be aggressive with his play calling. And one thing, too, Josh have to be able to handle the crowd noise, because it's going to be definitely loud at Arrowhead. It's going to have to be able to handle that. So that's one thing to take a look at on third down, how Josh handles crowd noise. It was a problem last year with crowd noise, and it wasn't even a full stadium. All right. So, that's something to look at as well. But nevertheless, if the Bills have variety in their run game, then that's going to open up a lot within that offense, because that's something that's never been done in the past two matchups versus Kansas City. The Bills were unsuccessful on trying to get any type of run established, forcing Josh and those guys to throw the ball. But Josh is more of a game manager now than he is just I guess I don't want to say an elite quarterback, because he is, but they're just upgrading him right now as a game manager. So if we can manage the game quite well and let our defense do what they've been doing, it's just another victory for the Bills.
What Mookie kind of alluded to there in his point really kind of brings in my key to victory on offense, and it has to do with Brian Dable. It has to do with his patience to have variety in the running game. I think if the Bills are able to stick with the rushing attack, not lose faith in it, not grow impatient, if they're getting 2-3 yards, just consider that a win because you're getting positive yards. That's really what I mean when I say, to be patient, to be persistent in the rushing attack, have faith in it. That is huge for this Bills offense. That is huge for the offensive line and who you're sending out there. If the plan is to have Darrell Williams play at right guard and have Spencer Brown at right tackle, I think that to have we're assuming that Mongo's back at left guard this week, right?
He wasn't on the report, so yeah.
So he's good to go. He'll be back at left guard, and I think that is huge for the offensive line to get them to have their feet moving, to have them moving forward, get them leaning on bodies, to give them a flow, get them in this game and allow them to gel early and have their communication buttoned up and be able to do what they need to do on the ground. I think it's huge for what it does for the passing attack. And I think you're not really I'm not going to say you're not going to be able to pass on this defense if you're not going to run the ball. But if you're going to win this game, I think you need to win time of possession. I think that's absolutely crucial if you're going to beat the Chiefs this week. I don't really envision this game being a shootout. I don't envision as many points as a lot of people really think there's going to be. And I don't envision the Chiefs really being able to move the ball as a lot of people anticipate them to. I think the Bills, if they're able to keep the ball on the ground and they're able to have faith in Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, and that's the biggest one for me is Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is going to have a really big game. He's going to have a really big part in what the Bills are doing on offense. And his success or lack thereof is going to dictate a lot for this rushing attack. And that's not to discredit Devin Singletary. He brings a lot for this offense. Both of those guys bring a lot of different elements to the offense. They're good at different things and they're good in different situations. And I think, whoever has the hot hand, as we've heard in weeks past, that will dictate a lot as to who's getting a majority of the carries and who's getting the ball in certain situations. Mario, I want to what?
No, I was just saying it was so weird because McDermott's always preaching continuity and complementary football between the offense and defense. And for the first 4 weeks, that's what it has been. It's been complementary football. The offense has been moving the chains. They've been generating first downs. They've been getting points, taking their opportunities when they get them. And I love that. And it's so weird because a lot of people are talking about it being a shootout and whatnot. But when you have a defense that is like a wounded animal, as the Kansas City Chiefs defense is, it seems, do you as a head coach, do you throw out the complementary football that you play with your defense and say, hey, we're going to take our shots against this defense and put our foot on their throat? Or are you going to say, hey, we're going to keep going with our game plan that complements our defense and try to wear this team down, run the ball, do a bunch of different things? Because it's like 6-1, half dozen the other sometimes when you want to talk about it. That's why there's so much mystery going in, especially with two teams that know each other as well as they do. There's still a lot of mystery of how the Buffalo Bills are going to attack this Kansas City team, how Kansas City Chiefs are going to do against this number one ranked defense. And there's so many questions that have to be answered. They're going to be answered around 8:00 tomorrow night, which is it's so exciting to talk about.
I was looking to wonder, I was wondering what you felt the biggest key to victory on the Bills' defensive side of the ball was. What do you think they need to do defensively in order to kind of dictate the outcome of this game?
Well, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think that if you're able, obviously, it's like a cop-out saying. If you're able to generate pressure with 4, obviously, any team in the NFL, if they're able to generate pressure with 4 and keep 7 in coverage against that, they're able to do that. I would mix up the matchups that you're going to have on that time. I already mentioned, I would put Trey White on Kelsey, and I would just try to have him jam because he is a very, very physical corner, even though Kelsey's a lot bigger than him. I understand that, but it opens up so much more things for other parts of your team and what's going to happen defensively and as far as you want to do schemes and whatnot. But I think the biggest matchup is going to be Mecole Hardman on Tyronn Johnson. That is the matchup. Other than the line, I'm looking at the line all the time. You know me, Clayton. I have the mentality of an offensive lineman for some reason. I don't know why. But Tyronn Johnson on Mecole Hardman is going to be my matchup to watch, and I'm going to be so interested to see how that manifests in and of itself throughout the game.
Yeah, and speaking of Tyronn Johnson, him getting a 3-year extension today, that's big for Tyronn Johnson. That's big for this team. It's big for the secondary and the continuity and what it means going forward. I want to talk about that a little bit more towards the end after we give our bowl predictions and our score predictions in regards to Tyronn Johnson's extension. But Tyronn Johnson's matchup with Mecole Hardman's huge. We've seen that in the past as to how Tyronn Johnson in coverage has hurt them against Kansas City Chiefs. His lack of instincts or his inability to perform in certain situations against the Chiefs has hurt the Bills defense mightily in the past. I'm really excited to see how he's able to perform tomorrow. He's looked really good this season, earning himself an extension. I think that was a situation where they're a little on the fence, and then he came out. He's been one of the 2 best players on the defense to start the year in the games that he's played in. That is, so yeah, that was a big move for the Bills. But Mookie, you mentioned the Bills getting off the field on 3rd down, that being a huge thing for the Bills. One of the biggest keys for victory for them on the defensive side of the ball. Do you have any other keys to victory for them on that side of the ball?
As far as the defense?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta make, like I said, you gotta make somebody else beat you. You can't let their star players get off. I mean, I just don't understand. You got to be able to take them away. Force somebody else to beat you. Force Pringle. Force Hartman. Force what's that? Josh Gordon. Force those guys to beat you. Demarcus Robinson. Force those guys to have career days. Let somebody else beat you tomorrow. Not Cheetah and Kelsey. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, then what are we game planning then? What are we game plan all week? If we seen 10-87 destroy Philadelphia, who are we trying to stop next week? So I don't understand what the game plan will be if we still allow Kelsey and Hill to go off tomorrow. We have to take those guys away, period. Get some pressure and just, force Patrick Mahomes to his left, get some pressure, force him to his left. And everybody else, just get to your mark. Get to your mark. Be physical, be aggressive. I think you're going to see that tomorrow on the Bills. Rousseau, he don't care about anything about the Kansas City Chiefs. He didn't play last year, so I'm quite sure he's going to be playing like his hair is going to be on fire. You got a guy in Spencer Brown who don't give a damn about anybody. So he didn't play last year. So I just want to see just that nasty. We finally got some nasty guys up front, and I wait to see how it's going to match up against Kansas City tomorrow. I'm gonna have a close eye against Rousseau. I'm gonna have a closer eye on Spencer Brown because those are going to be key factors in tomorrow's victory. The way they play out there is going to definitely help the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely. This is the more fun portion of the Saturday Night Tailgate. We're getting to the bold predictions. These 2 last year, I mean, Mookie, do you still have that machete on top of your fridge?
Just
he does.
Chill. I got it on chill right now.
He does.
Yeah. So it's always fun doing bold predictions, whether we're drawing back and forth of who was right or who was wrong. Mario, what would be your bold prediction for the offensive side of the ball of the Bills?
Offensive side of the ball for the Bills, bold prediction is that we see Moss go over 100 yards on the ground. We see Moss definitely go over 100. Would I take yours?
Yeah.
Every
week. Every week somebody takes it. It's all right.
I'm sorry. I think with the mixing the run and the pass, and I think the Buffalo Bills personally are going to have a sizable lead, and they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more, and Kansas City's not going to be able to do anything to stop it, even though they know it's coming. I tend to view this game, on paper a little bit more than, as I talked at the onset about the psyche of the Bills. It is important for the psyche of the Bills to try to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand that. But if the Buffalo Bills are to lose this game, I know a lot of people aren't talking about that. If the Buffalo Bills are to lose, yes, it sucks in the standings. Yes, it sucks. It's an AFC conference game. But you didn't lose the playoffs. You didn't lose the championship game. You didn't lose the Super Bowl if you lose tomorrow. You got to, and we've seen the resolve of this Bills team when they lose. What happens? They lost to Arizona last year and they went on a tear. They lost to Pittsburgh earlier in this year and they went on a tear. So somehow losing tends to refocus this team and it just pisses them off. So going with that, I think I have a very and you'll see from my score prediction, I have a very different mindset for this Bills team going against this Kansas City Chiefs team and destroying the mystique of the Chiefs tomorrow.
Sounds like you have a lot of confidence going up against the Chiefs the same way I do. Mookie, what would be your bold prediction for the Bills offense against the Chiefs tomorrow?
That could be pretty bold. I mean, I mean, what could be pretty bold when Kansas City defense is pretty much horrible? Like, is it bold to say that the Bills can get 500 total yards, 200 on the ground, 300 in the air? I mean,
there it is. There it is, Mook.
That,
500 offensive yards against this team, against the Kansas City Chiefs. I like it.
That's more than fair. I think the Bills are going to have a lot of opportunities tomorrow, and if the ball is in their hands, they need to score touchdowns. My bold prediction is I'm going to say 2 touchdowns for Dawson Knox, 2 more touchdowns for Dawson Knox. They continue to target him in the red zone. That seems to be Allen's comfort. When the area becomes tight, he looks for Dawson Knox to make some sort of play on the ball or get separation and get the ball in the end zone. I think that the correlation of them targeting Dawson Knox in the red zone it continues tomorrow. And I think with everything they have to worry about with Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, all the players that they have in their arsenal, that Dawson Knox is going to leak open again twice this week. Mario, what would be your defensive bold prediction for the Chiefs or for the Bills? I'm sorry.
To back up your point though about Dawson Knox, he's gonna have a rookie. He's gonna have Bolton on him. He's gonna have a rookie, so he could play around with that rookie's head for a little while, for a couple of quarters, and mess around with him. The bold prediction I had, I'm going to continue it. The one I had earlier this week is I don't think the Chiefs get 10 points by the half. I think that this Buffalo Bills defense is for real. I think that they're going to be shutting down Mahomes. There's going to be some halftime adjustments that Reed and Bieniemy are going to have to make going into the second half against this Bills team, which I don't think they're going to. It's going to be an insurmountable lead for them, and I think that this Buffalo Bills defense is legit. And like I said, I don't even think that the Buffalo. And I got a I got a horse in the game there, Clayton. I bet Paul that I think it was 12 points at the half for the Kansas City Chiefs, because Buffalo Bills, 3 out of the 4 games, they have not allowed a point in the first half. Washington was the only game where they allowed any points in the first half. So I think this team plays with a lot of pride, and they're not going to be sitting on their heels waiting for the Cheetah and Kelsey to get to them. I think they're going to be in attack mode all 60 minutes. So I got the Bills not even surrendering 10 points to the Chiefs by the half.
And just to kind of go off of the fact that they haven't allowed any points aside from Washington in the first half, I believe that, or in the first quarter, you said, correct?
First half, actually.
Okay, so in the first half, that one score that they had against Washington, that was on the heels of a special teams goof up too.
Yep.
That's really important to remember.
Mm-hmm.
That defense has just been really dominant this year in every regard. Mookie, what would be your bold prediction for the Bills defense in this game?
Let's see. Bold prediction. Let's say, hey, the sack pack. Say the sack pack go and get 4 sacks tomorrow against Patrick Mahomes. My man GR the Giant is gonna have 2 sacks. Let's say 5 sacks. I'm gonna say Bills defense get 5 sacks. 2 of them come from Russo.
Man,
dang, they've only given up 5 all year, Mook.
Russo, I was going to say Russo was going to have 2 sacks tomorrow, but that's all right. That's okay. I think it's going to be another big game for Tyronn Johnson. I think Tyronn Johnson gets an interception tomorrow. I think that this secondary is going to be opportunistic with some of the pressure that Mookie had alluded to, that front's going to be able to create. I think that defense, they continue to do what they do. I think they've been dominant, as Mario had said. They've been a really good defense in every regard. On the back end, in the front, the linebackers do what they do. They run to the ball, they fly, they play fast, they play physical. It's a really good defense. I'm excited to see what they're able to do in this matchup. It's a huge test. Everybody likes to talk about who the Bills have played, as we mentioned earlier. I don't really think that holds much merit, and I think a lot of people are proving that tomorrow. So let's get into our score predictions. Mario, you seem really confident in what the Bills are going to be able to do. I think you're going to have quite a different score prediction compared to a lot of people. What do you think this happened, or what do you think's happening tomorrow?
I think the score prediction. Well, I got to tail it off to another point that I wanted to make as well. But I think the score prediction. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to exercise some demons tomorrow, and they're going to come out firing, and they're going to win by a score of 31-17 tomorrow. But I have a question for you guys after you're done with your score predictions. As far as if the Buffalo Bills were to lose, I'm just saying, if the Buffalo Bills were to lose, like let's say they lose 17-10, just get ready. Number one, your reaction. Number two, get ready for the fallout of the chaos that's going to ensue before Tennessee. That's all I'm going to say is the fact that the Buffalo Bills, this horrible defense of Kansas City, was only able to generate 10 points. The defense did their job. They held them to 17, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. So that is my one. If we could add on to the bold prediction and score prediction, what is one fear you have is that this is an extremely low scoring game for the Buffalo Bills. That terrifies me for tomorrow.
I mean, the fear that I have for the Bills, if it was a low scoring affair, there's things that are going to happen if the Bills don't put up a lot of points. It's going to be an ugly game. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be miscues. There's going to be not opportunistic football, not complimentary football. And I think if that were to happen, you're going to see a game in which the Bills shot themselves in the foot, where play calling shot them in the foot. Allen didn't play good because if they only score 10 points, Allen played really bad. That is the only way I see it happening. And what happens on social media happens, but I think that kind of plays into what you had said at the onset, or not the onset, but what you had said at the beginning of one of your points, the fact that if you lose tomorrow, that you didn't lose the AFC Championship, you didn't lose your division, you didn't lose the Super Bowl, you lost one game. And what it means to the Bills and winning this game, I think it means a lot to them if they were to win it, but it doesn't mean quite as much if they were to lose it. And I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily say optimism, but there's a lot of confidence in the fact that you're going to have to see that team again. And if you're going to get where you're trying to go, likely, in all likelihood, you're going to play that team again to get to the Super Bowl or to get to the AFC Championship. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's not going to be detrimental to this team. And like you had also said, Mario, it does a lot for this team when they lose. They find quite a large fire underneath them whenever they lose, and they go on a complete tear whenever they lose. So I don't really anticipate them losing. But Mookie, what would be your score prediction for tomorrow? And also, you can answer what Mario had asked us.
I'm gonna answer Mario's question first.
Here comes the machete.
No way. Yeah, you're right. I should have went and grabbed the machete real quick. There's no way that Kansas City is going to hold the Bills to their lowest point scorer in the season. They're going to hold more than the Steelers defense did.
I was just throwing out a low scoring affair.
Now it can happen because, hey, maybe sometimes a team just have your number. And I get that, schematically, the way the Bills play, the way Kansas City's offense designed, Andy Reid knows McDermott, like the back of his hand. So, it has that factor, they just have this team's number. If that happens, then they just have the damn Bills number, but the Bills need to play more aggressive to get that. I want to see the Bills play aggressive. When teams play them aggressive, it's a different story. Pressure busts pipes. So, I just don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. They cannot go out there and lay an egg again, in Arrowhead. That's just not gonna happen. But I do understand that it is one game and don't define nothing. But if you listen to what Coach McDermott said as well, one of the keys on getting to the Super Bowl is having home field advantage. So this is a game that this big boy ball. So you basically have to win this game. Kansas City is the AFC defending champion. So you have to win that game if you want home field advantage against a Tennessee Titan, against a Kansas City Chiefs, because that's going to give you basically, some breathing room in the conference. So this is a must-win game for the Buffalo Bills. So they have to go on road. They have to play on, primetime football in front of everybody and, beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to beat the team 3 times now. It is very hard to beat a team 3 times. So this marks the third one, maybe third time's a charm for the Buffalo Bills. They go out and get it done. It's going to be as advertised, but the game is going to be in the 20s. I'm going to say Bills pull this thing out 29-23. The Bills are going to dominate, early on, but, Kansas City is going to find a way to score some points to make this respectable. So I think we have some good balance out there, and the Bills will move on out of Arrowhead victorious, man, 29-23.
I only bring that up, Mookie and Clayton, for this point alone, because in recent history it showed us this. In 2019, the Kansas City Chiefs went 12-4. The year they won the Super Bowl, when they beat the San Francisco 49ers. 2 of their 4 losses were against Houston and Tennessee. So they lost to Houston during the regular season. They lost to Tennessee during the regular season. The 2 teams that they beat in the divisional and the conference championship to go to the Super Bowl. They beat both of those teams in the playoffs. So some teams sometimes get complacent. They think they have your number, and you come up and you sneak up on them and you smack them in the mouth. It could be one. So as a solace to the Bills fans, if the Bills do lose, there have been cases of many teams that have lost during the regular season against a team and come back in the playoffs and smack them in the mouth and won. I think the Raiders did it the one year when they won the Super Bowl. They lost to the Seahawks twice, and then they beat them in the playoffs. So, that's why I made the point earlier about this is only one regular season game. If they happen to lose, the sky's not falling on Buffalo. They're going to be 3-2 going into a Monday night game. So. That's the only reason I bring it up. That's really the only reason.
Yeah, no, it's an important point to be made. I think a lot gets wrapped up into this game. A lot gets wrapped up into how monumental it is for the Bills, how monumental it is for the Chiefs, because it is really important in the long term and how the AFC plays out, home field advantage for the playoffs, all of those things. It has a lot of importance for both franchises. And you just look at the pure aspect of just, a quarterback who was on the up, who had a really good season last year, and Josh Allen, and just overtaking what has been an AFC powerhouse over the last 3 seasons in the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's really important if the Bills are looking to go to the Super Bowl, looking to win an AFC championship, have home field advantage, have the playoffs come through Buffalo. That'd be really important. And it means a lot to this football team. And it means a lot for long-term success. For a score prediction, I also believe the Bills are going to win. I agree with Mookie in the fact that it's going to stay in the 20s, but I don't anticipate the Chiefs to be really overpowering like they have seemed in the past. I don't think that they're just going to run the ball down the Bills' throat. I don't think they're going to just do what they want on the offensive side of the ball like they've been able to do. I think the Bills are going to do a lot of what they've been doing over the last month. I think they're going to play complementary football. I think they're going to keep it on the ground, and they're going to let their 2 running backs do a lot and allow their quarterback to do a lot based off of play action and just taking care of matchups, taking advantage of mismatches, getting Stephon Diggs the ball in space, getting him the ball, and having designed plays for Josh Allen to get in the rhythm and have confidence to start this game and ease him into the game. I think is really an undermined key to victory and an undermined thing for the Bills to get this offense really off the ground, to have confidence, to get the ball moving, and just keep their heads in the game and not make them feel like they have their backs up against the wall is huge for this Bills offense to be able to have consistent momentum throughout 4 quarters. So I'm going to go with the Bills winning this one 27-23, 2 points less than Mookie, but I think that the Bills are going to control the game. They're going to win time of possession, and I think people are going to be surprised that the Bills defense is going to play as well as they do against the Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be as close as my score prediction indicates. I think, as Mookie had mentioned, they're going to have points towards the end of the game. They're going to have plays towards the end of the game that makes it appear closer than it was. And I think this is a convincing win for the Bills. I think the Bills are going to look very good on national television to a lot of different people. And I don't think we're going to be asking ourselves the questions that Mario has us prepared to answer as we went through the show. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun for this football team to see what they're able to do on a national stage in this way.
Well, I mean, and to both of you guys' point is what we were talking about earlier about equipping your team to take down the big dog in the conference. You look at the victories that the Buffalo Bills have had. They've gotten up and they've kept their foot on the gas pedal as far as defensively. Because they know you go up 14 on Kansas City. It's not like going 14 up on Taylor Heineke. You're going 14 up on Mahomes. He can cut that deficit in 4 minutes. So they've kept their foot on the gas pedal because that's what they're conditioned to do to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You built your team to beat the Chiefs. And what does that mean? When you got your opponent down, you don't let them back in the game. That's why I think is an understated thing going on in this game is the fact that this defense, if they were up 35-0 like they were, maybe a team squeezes in 7. They're up 40-0, maybe a team squeezes in 14. They couldn't. They couldn't at all, because that's how this team was built, was the fact that, hey, if we got this team down, we have to keep them down because they could score. Let's keep going. And I know matchups aside, that's what the Buffalo Bills defense is conditioned to doing, to keeping their foot on the gas pedal like it's 0-0 the entire game.
Yeah, that's huge. I kind of just the sidetrack from the game and just the matchups and the score predictions. We all think the Bills are going to win, but as we mentioned throughout the show at some point, that Tyronn Johnson did receive a 2-year or a 3-year extension worth $24 million to keep him in Buffalo for the next two. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen, but keep him in Buffalo for the next 3 years, $14 million guaranteed. Mookie, what are your thoughts on Tyronn Johnson getting the extension? Do you think how big of a part of this Bills defense do you think he's going to be for the future?
Well, they don't have to worry about getting the slot corner, for the next 3 years. You'll have a understudy, a backup. You kind of got that right now in Cam Lewis. When you look at the design of the Bills, are basically draft your guys, develop them, and then you pay them. That's something that has never been done in the past. We always would draft them, develop them, then send them somewhere else, and then they'll go win the Super Bowl. So you wanna keep those guys around, and as you can see by keeping those guys around, how much dividends it's paying off very, very quickly for the Bills. So you don't want to get rid of that. You want to keep that around, and that keeps the core here, and that keeps that continuity thing that I guess that's just the new thing now, continuity. That keeps that around, and that helps win ball games. When you look at year 3, Tyronn Johnson, how his game has evolved. Now he's getting paid as one of the top slot corners in the game right now. So, hats off to him. Coming from Weber State and playing at a high level, and now got a few nibbles now. So now it's time to perform to that. Still it gets harder for him. So the expectation is higher now because they're paying you a few more kills and bits. So you got to be able to perform that way. And, I think, he deserved that. He definitely deserved that. That keeps the core around, and that lets everybody know in the locker room that, hey, we'll have no problem paying you if you're doing your job. And, that's going around in that locker room. Everybody that the Bills draft, that's under contract right now. Nobody's leaving. So, that's just another piece of the puzzle that's been around, for quite a while and going to be here for the next 3 years.
Yeah, it says a lot of things to that locker room about what they really what you said at the onset of your point about you get drafted here, we let you develop in our system, we let you be a part of this team, and you become the best version of yourself, and you become better and better as time goes on. You also mentioned how he was paid as one of the top nickel corners in football. Mario, do you feel like that was warranted? Do you feel like Tyronn Johnson has nothing but good things to show for the Bills in the future? Or are you a little bit concerned with some of the weariness or some of the issues we've seen with him in the past, aside from the start of this year?
Well, the contract ends when he's 29. He becomes an unrestricted free agent when he's 29. And Bean, has always been very ahead of the curve when it comes to certain things like that. The way that the offenses are run in the NFL right now, I think he's going to have one of the cheapest deals. By the time this contract is up, he's going to have one of the cheapest deals as far as a slot corner, nickel corner is concerned, because that's the way the game is progressing in the NFL right now. You're starting to talk about these guys that are the slot wide receivers those are the guys that are making the huge money and being essentially the difference makers in the NFL with their play. And we saw it with Josh Allen. By the time Josh Allen's contract kicks in, he's not going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. So Bean is actually getting ahead of the curve here with Tyronn Johnson. Is it a little north of what I would have given Tyronn Johnson? Yes, but you talk about a guy. It might have been 4 years if the guy was remaining healthy. They probably would have signed him and extended him until he was in his 30s. So it's a safe deal. It's like Mookie said, you're keeping continuity as far as your defense goes. You're going to have a slot corner in the division for you, and it's one of those things too, is if you're a player around the NFL and you see Tyronn Johnson get 3 years, $24 million, that is even more alluring to the NFL to come to the Buffalo Bills. Higher level players in the NFL to sign with Buffalo. But hey, this guy, did this, and it also goes to players that get drafted by Buffalo. So it hits a lot of different places and a lot of different avenues as far as this signing goes. So I'm happy for the signing. I love Tyronn Johnson as a slot corner. They do have depth. They do have insurance there if he happens to go down. I understand that, but it's the message that it sends signing him 3 years, $24 million is very smart by Bean, and it sends a different message to a lot of different corners of the NFL and your team by signing a guy like that to that kind of money.
Yeah, it does a lot for this football team. I think what we've seen from Tyronn Johnson, before this season, if you told me this is how it was going to play out, I may not have been too happy about it. But if he was going to play to the level of how he has played this season, all season, he was going to be worth way more than $8 million per season open market at the end of the year. That's just a matter of fact. He is on nothing but the ascension. I don't think he has done anything but improve over this offseason in all the areas that I felt like he needed to. In the past, I felt like he was a player that if he wasn't moving forward, then he was kind of a liability. He wasn't that good in coverage. He wasn't that physical. He wasn't very instinctive at all. And this season, he's done nothing but improve in every single one of the areas that I had just mentioned that he was lacking in. So if he's going to continue to play to the level that he's established himself at this season, then I have nothing but high hopes for him. And I think this is a knockout of the park deal for the Bills and their secondary moving forward, especially when you consider two of your focal points, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. They're not getting any younger, and their contracts are doing nothing but expiring. So those guys are going to be on the outs within the next two to 3 years, you have to expect. And Tyronn Johnson's going to be here, and he's going to play a part in whatever the future of that Bills secondary is going to entail. So I think he's going to be a big part of this secondary. He's going to be a big part of this defense. Like I mentioned, he's been one of the two best players on that side of the ball this season. So nothing but optimism for Tyronn Johnson in that regard after getting a 3-year extension today. It means nothing but good things for this franchise and everybody in that locker room.
You know how many tackles he had last year?
How many?
94. Your slot corner had 94 tackles last year. Everyone highlights the big plays that he made in the playoffs and against Ben Roethlisberger, but that dude, he sticks his nose into the B gap to make tackles. I mean, you don't find those guys every day that are that size and are willing to sacrifice their bodies the way they are. So
he's a big hitter.
Agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. He was a guy that it's a great signing for Buffalo, and he's a guy that is one of your two best players right now on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. So here at the end of the show, I want to appreciate everybody for sticking around for an hour and 40 minutes. It was a bit of a longer show for the Cold Front Report, but it was packed full of content, all the insight that Steve was able to bring earlier in the show to kind of highlight Kansas City and what they're all about. And of course, having both of these gentlemen on, Mookie for the entire show. As always, I always appreciate Mookie coming on, and Mario, it was great having you back on. Mookie, I have both of these guys links, or the links to their Twitter in the description below, and also the link to Mario's channel in the description below. Mookie, can you tell the people where they can find you and what they had to look forward to when they do? You're always on the move. You're always on the beat for the Buffalo Bills. You have content coming out every week, asking all the important questions to these guys when the press conferences come. Just tell the people where they can find you and what they have to look for when they do.
And you can always hit me on all social media platforms, man, at WUFO Sports. That's WUFO Sports. And, of course, Mookie Hawkins. You can catch me Monday nights and Wednesday nights live on the radio at 96.5. And also, obviously, Sundays, we do post game, 6 o'clock. So, there you have it. Monday nights, Wednesday nights. You can catch me on Thursday on the Fan Base Network. So I'm just all over the place right now, Clint.
Absolutely. Always a busy man.
He always is.
Mario, you and Paul keep doing your thing. You've added Joe onto the crew over there at #Sports. Why don't you tell the people what you have going on, what they have to look forward to? You guys have nothing but quality content always coming out at #Sports. So people, if you want to find him and his channel, go to the description below, click on it, hit that subscribe button, and always stay tuned what #Sports have going on. Please tell the people where they can find you and what they have to look forward to.
Yeah, you can find us on all social medias at #Sports. Throughout the week, we got Joe calling the play-by-play of the game. Saul and I will be doing the post game. We also have Joe does his betting picks throughout the week. Paul has his morning coffee on Thursdays. We have our Friday night tailgate talk with Tommy and Mike, and then I do Saturday morning #hangover. Well, you can check that out as well. And just coming up is during the bye week after the Tennessee game, we're going to be back in the car. So we're going to have some content coming from the car once again for the faithful that like those car episodes. So those are coming up very soon. And that's we're moving and shaking over at hashtag Clayton. You know that. So
yeah, things are always growing. Things are always moving. Hopefully, I can get in the car. I haven't been in the car yet.
we'd have to put Paul in the back if you come in the car.
That's a must. I can't sit in the back seat of anything. So that is 110% a must if I'm going to go in the car. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's always fun over at hashtag sports. It's always a pleasure going live with both these gentlemen. Mookie, I want to thank you for your time. Mario, same goes to you. It's always a pleasure going deep into any matchup the Bills have and just, chopping the talk. It's always fun talking with you guys and going live with you. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody watching. Be sure to follow if you want to find me, you can find me at CFR Clayton on Twitter, and be sure to follow the Cold Front Report. It's at Cold Front Report on Twitter, at Cold Front Report _ Bills News on Instagram. Be sure to like our page, Buffalo Bills Cold Front Report on Facebook, and you'll always be notified whenever we're going live. We're always going live. I believe we'll be going live Monday night to recap this game. But we'll be covering the game all throughout the week. We'll be talking about all the matchups and what have you. There's always things going on here at the Cold Front Report. So be sure to be tuned in. I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and go Bills.